I would like to see us the same as these other nationalities. I come from a small town in South Carolina, Marion, South Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with Marion.
And I go through Marion, and I come through, and I see stores that were owned by white people years ago, because they own all the major stores. And every gas station today in Marion is owned by Indian nationality. Nothing's wrong with that. Indian nationality. The grocery stores, Indian nationality. The little mom and pop stores, Indian nationality. Now, you mean to tell me that if you've grown up, that you didn't see these stores and knowing that the owners of these stores were getting older and were probably looking to sell?
Yeah. I sometimes wonder if we don't pay attention to what's going on. I got a good friend of mine. He's actually been on my podcast before. He goes by the nickname of Mr. Shoe, but he had a science background and opened up first a shoe store, and now he's an upholstery person. But he was telling many of us about what he saw as the growth in the Triangle, and particularly in Durham. And that growth has grown exponentially from what he thought it was going to be. And he's told several of us, I would even argue myself included, that, y'all need to get involved, even if you team up and try to find a way to invest. And we're seeing more and more of, lack of a better term, white America and other societies that are investing in that downtown that is growing by leaps and bounds. And there are very few of us that are involved. And then people are now saying, woulda, shoulda, coulda. And he and others are looking like, I told you then, but you didn't want to listen to me.
That's the same way in the town I was in. There was a gentleman that owned the liquor store who had been there for years, and myself were the only ones. And back during this time, well, the reason I bought this store, because this store had been there for ages and everyone knew the store. But there were vacant stores up and down that strip. And you go through there now and walk in, none of them. The only store that's left that's black owned is the eyeglass store, and that's it. Out of about maybe 50 stores in and around the region, wrapped around a major supermarket. But so when you look at that and you're thinking, and then you hear, so I got into like a little back and forth online last night, and someone was saying, yeah, they just come in and take it over. I said, taking over what? Because the store is vacant, they come in and rent the store? Have you ever considered putting some money together, putting everything on the line, and going and renting a store? It's the same thing. It isn't brain surgery.
Right.
Even if it's a grocery store, you rent the store, you put some shelves in, you fill it up with grocery items, and you mark it up.
Yep. Now, you mentioned venture capitalists, and I think that that's a wonderful thing, and I know some people that are involved in that and have had tremendous success getting venture capital. I was just wondering if you had advice for getting that to people that might be listening. But then I'm also hearing a lot of people that are getting very caught up in what I call the quick fix kind of economy, and I'm not saying that it's not successful, and you may have certain opinions on it, but they're getting caught up in the whole Bitcoin kind of economy. So I was wondering what you think of these kind of like get quick kind of schemes, because in my mind, that's what they are. They're get quick schemes.
No, you know what? And this is my version of it. Success is a grind. Mm-hmm. There's this thing in life called the iceberg theory. You only see the top of it, and people see success. Then I have this picture on my desk because I don't work from home. Can't work from home, so I have an office downtown, and I have this photo on my desk, and it shows the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg. You see that says success, and under that it says hard work, sleepless nights, and it lists a whole host of things. So some days I sit and I look at that, and I said, that's right. Because I'm at this stage now, but people walk and see me walking in, driving nice cars, totally dressed, and they said, wow, they only see the tip of the iceberg. They don't see the underpinnings of that to get to that point. So it's a grinding out thing. I mean, even if you were a doctor and you were to open an office and patients started coming in, it takes a while to build that practice. Mm-hmm. If you were a lawyer and you hang a shingle out and you're trying to drum up business, being a legal counsel or whatever, it takes time. Anything to get rich quick, you can lose it quick. And this Bitcoin coins and all these kinds of things, I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it because it's not for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm seeing so many people that are trying to get into that. And I'm like you, I don't understand it either. Now, what about venture capitalists? How would you suggest somebody go about finding the venture capitalists? Because I know a lot of folks are always having their business ideas and they want venture capitalists because they might have an idea that's a little bit more cash extensive, like you just said, and they don't have
Yeah.
necessarily those cash flows themselves. So, in your mind, what's the best way to go about trying to find these venture
Well,
capitalists?
in every neighborhood or every town, people with money. So I think don't get caught up on the venture capitalist. He's a venture capitalist. If they have money or the appearance of money, these are the people you ask.
Right.
And it could be someone in your town who's retired and who's done well. And if your pitch is strong and you can actually walk them through, tell them the story, there may be an opportunity there to say, you know what, I'll give you this to do this.
Right.
Because people do it all the time. This gentleman he was trying to raise $1 million. And I said, how are you going to do this? Is you're looking for one investor or you're looking for multiples? He said, no, I don't want to do multiples. But if you bundle it and you bring a group together of 10 people and everybody puts in 100, we can go with that. So the word venture capitalist is a buzzword. Right. Where do you find them? First of all, the ones that of venture capitalists, you couldn't get to them anyway. Mm-hmm. The guys in the West are known for that. I forget. Kleiner Perkins is right. One in the IT industry. I know a gentleman who's a major venture capitalist in New York. He and I were on a panel years ago. And we still keep in touch from time to time. Now, he's a venture capitalist. He's invested in so many things. The guy's an uber wealthy individual. But he's considered a venture capitalist. Now, because I know him, I could get an audience right. with him. Now, whether he would write a check, that's something that's totally different. If you go back and read the WeWork story, mm-hmm. It's an excellent article on how WeWork, the gentleman that founded it, right. was able to secure capital through venture capitalists. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting story for someone thinking that, but that's at a different level. If I'm trying to open a grocery store across the street, they're not even going to listen to that because they have a threshold. They will only fund deals 5 to 10 million up. So when you call yourself a venture capitalist, you're in a totally different category. That's like trying to buy a car or trying to buy a Mercedes. Right. So that's the top of the food chain.
Yeah, because I sometimes wonder, I'm here, like I said, in Durham, and of course, Chapel Hill is nearby, and sometimes we have people here that are always complaining about the athletes because, of course, Duke and UNC have provided tremendous success in the athletic field that have gone on to professional athletics, and they're always wondering, why aren't these people coming back and investing in their community? And I'm sitting there going like, they're trying to survive on their own things. And a lot of them, in my opinion, don't even have that great of business expertise themselves. So a lot of times they're not the best business people in the world.
Yeah, that's why they go broke.
Right.
So often. But let me just say this because I hear that a lot. Yeah, well, Oprah should be doing this, a Bill Clinton. You know what? You don't know what these people do on their own.
Right.
You don't know what they're funding on their own. And lots of times people that are in that category are doing things that they don't want their names to be attached to it. If they write a check to send something out, the ones you should be suspect of that's always on the news is showing you, I'm giving $5 million to this, because the real authentic person, you never know that.
Right. They would. So
when you look at an athlete and say they're not doing anything, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, but just because it's not all over the news, or they won't take an audience with you to listen to some harebrained scheme. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, what's the craziest? I'm sure you've had some. What's the craziest scheme that somebody has approached you with that you were just shocked that they even tried to approach you with that scheme? Because you've been in the business world for a while, so I'm sure you've had some that you just
and one pops out of my mind. Had this harebrained idea, and one of the things that I tend to read a lot, and I read business articles and I read about people who were venture capitalists. I read about businessmen who made it and kind of things they go through. And one of the gentlemen said, he said, when I analyze a deal, he said, lots of times, even everyone is going to fudge the numbers somewhat. Mm-hmm. But I want to listen to the compassion. I want to listen to whether you thought this through and whether it makes sense. The words you use. So I'm saying this to preface what I'm getting ready to say. So this brother has been a friend of mine for years and years. And he pitches me the other week, a couple of months ago, about this idea that he wants to do. I won't go into what the idea was. He wants to do this because he wants to make enough so he can come visit me in Dubai. He wants to become rich, and he wants to become this, and he wants to become this. Nothing about the business model. And he's going on and on and on. So finally, when he finished, I said, you know what? I said, I'm not interested in it. I said, but I tell you what, don't focus on the wealth. Don't focus on trying to attain wealth. Focus on having a strong business model that you could explain it to anybody and it makes sense. I said, because you ramble over 10 different, and he has a Wharton MBA.
Wow.
And I said, you've been rambling for the past 6 months with these emails you're sending me. And the running theme is that I want to get this off the ground so I can be wealthy to build a legacy for my family.
It sounds like he was
when I see the email come in, I said, do I read? No, I'll read it next week. I said, because I'm not in the mindset to go through this foolishness.
Wow, it sounds like he was concentrating more on the whole concept of being wealthy versus on whatever the product was, and whether it's a product or whether it's a service. Because being
the entrepreneur,
right?
You know, the buzzword. Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. Somebody said, "Oh, yeah, Ron's an entrepreneur." I said, "No, I own a business and I'm trying to make a business successful. That's what I do. Don't put me in those terms."
Yeah, because that is very much of a buzzword, and the ones that seem to be successful to me are the ones that have a passion about it. Whether it's, like I said, I have some creative entrepreneurs that are having some great businesses. I have some in the spirit world in terms of liquors and things of that nature, and even some in some other business fields. But they all have the common ground that I see in them, and some of them have been on the podcast, some I just know personally. But the common theme is that they all seem to have a passion for their product or a passion for their service. It's not about just the lifestyle, because once you get into the lifestyle, you've defeated the purpose.
It's not about the windfall that's coming in and all those kind of things. It's not about that. You know, my father, I grew up in Marion, South Carolina, and my father owned a taxi company. And I used to drive taxi on weekends, and I always, when I fly into a country, I enjoyed riding with the taxis and tell them my story and, you know, that kind of thing. But I always watched him, very successful at what he did. That led into other things, owning property and partial interest in a liquor store, but just a hardworking guy. And he could not even spell the word entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. But he was a classic example of someone, 8th grade education, but who was extremely successful in that little town and made a damn good living and gave all of us a good living. And I learned more from him than I learned at Benedict College in South Carolina, NYU in New York City.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah. But no buzzwords, no nothing. This is what you got to do. You have to do this. If you want to be this, you do this. And it was always like when he would come in at night at the end of the day, and, you know, I'd always get right under him, and he's telling me about this and about that. And I was sucking it in like a sponge. Nothing flashy.
Yeah, and that's the kind of people that I've always been admired of, those people that aren't flashy. Because one of the things that you probably learned in entrepreneurship is, you mentioned earlier, having worked with Martha Stewart, and I think one of the greatest things about entrepreneurs is that they're resilient. I mean, she was, you know, convicted and everything else, and now she's coming back just as strong as she was before she went into prison.
Well, the business is a shell of what it used to be.
Right.
But she has made it. I mean, so when I said earlier I stayed there for 9, close to 10 years, it was the best job I ever had because I just really enjoyed working there. It was a young company, entrepreneurial company, and we were always doing things, going into a new business, and it was so exciting. And I've never had a job that I enjoyed as much as that. But it came to a point, after she came out of jail and all the disruption that was going in, and they were trying to